Hi, Cheri. Here we are again.
I'm here again with my friend Cameron Powers. We're still in his living room. We're just hanging out, sharing. It's really cool when you get a chance to just chill out and share with amazing, amazing people. And
Yeah.
Cameron just happens to be one of those really amazing people in my life that I never really get enough time with, but I try. So we're here today, and Cameron is, as you may know, if you watched the first edition that we shared on him and his work, the founder of Musical Ambassadors of Peace. It's a global organization that sends people around the world or empowers people around the world to use music, dance, creativity, song as a healing and a way to bring more peace to the planet. It's a really beautiful thing. So we've been talking today about all kinds of really cool stuff, and I wanted to have Cameron just share a couple of his stories because he's really got this wealth of wisdom and knowledge and experience from traveling the world for over 50 years. How many years? Over 50?
I lost track, but yeah, something
it's
like
over
that.
50, which is pretty good. It's a lot of time traveling the world. And he's been a musician and shared his music with people from every continent just about. So I asked him today to kind of share a little bit about his work and also just share a few highlights of his favorite stories. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Cameron. I get to listen.
Well, I thought of a story that I'd like to share that goes way back to the 1960s and the 1970s when I was exploring Peru. I had been on a mountaineering expedition in the Andes when I was 21 years old, and the mountains were amazing. They go up to 24,000 feet down there, but I spent a couple of months traveling through Peru and Bolivia, and I fell in love with the Andean people, the Inca people. I was so curious to find out who they were that it eventually motivated me to go through 3 linguistics departments and an anthropology department to acquire the tools, mostly for language learning, that I just didn't have. So I ended up eventually making trips over and over again to a little village that it took 3 days walk from the end of the nearest road to get to.
Wow, nice.
And of course they spoke the Inca language there. A few people knew some Spanish, but mostly we spoke Quechua, the Inca language. And I was running eventually a tour company, which I called Cameron's Terrible Tours. That was to entice the right kind of people to go along. And I went back quite a few times to that same village, and I developed a network of family connections in that village. But the music, I wanted to tell a story about the music because
Do it.
the first
Yes.
few times I had been in Andean Inca culture and I heard their music, they're called huaynos. You know, they're so different that it just sounded like ridiculously foreign to me. But of course, as the years went by and I was spending time and time again in that village, I gradually absorbed the feeling of that music, and then I could be more effective at just singing along with them. And I always carried a musical instrument with me when I traveled. And in those years it was a guitar. And eventually I learned how to actually make sounds on the guitar that kind of went along with that music. But it wasn't the structure of the music that I wanted to talk about. It was about the emotional content of their music. Because their habit was to work all the time. That village planted potatoes. They had alpacas and llamas and sheep and cattle and other things to tend to. But most of their time was spent planting potatoes and harvesting potatoes. And whenever they stopped doing the work, then they would celebrate something. Maybe somebody was building a new house,
Nice.
or they had a baby, or who knows what. But I discovered that the rhythm of that involved staying up for 4 days and 4 nights
Nice.
to celebrate whatever it was. And while they celebrated, they sang. And while they sang, they cried.
Aww.
There was something about singing that enabled them to almost immediately, within 10 minutes, tears would be flowing.
Wow.
And they would be sharing the deep passions of what, unrequited love affairs, the loneliness of being a shepherd at 14,000 feet for like months at a time, and having to cross all those distances on foot, carrying 100 pounds of potatoes on your back, so they would like burst into tears as they sang and wail at the sky. And of course, you can imagine what happened to anybody who starts spending all night long singing with these people. You start to absorb their emotions. You start to find yourself crying and wailing at the sky for the same reasons, even though you're from a different part of the world. It was a powerful acquisition of a new soul. It's like after enough years of doing that and learning the languages and the music on a structural level so I could do it, I found that I was personally in charge of a new little baby Andean Inca soul that had been born in my own chest, in my own heart.
Wow.
And this is the most piercing quality was the parts of the suffering and the pain that I was able then to share. I could like just dissolve into tearful embraces with these brothers and sisters that I had acquired. And later I realized that having that opening into your own soul was a magnificent rebirth, a way to be reborn. Numerous times I ended up doing the same thing later in Greek culture and then again in Egyptian culture. And I wanted to fast forward, unless you have some comment at this point, to Egypt. Here I am decades later, and I have been performing Arabic music, Egyptian music, mostly, to play for dancers, because as I learned Greek music and I started playing for so many dancers, the dancers kept whispering me, "Cameron, learn Egyptian music." And so I did, and the dancers would suggest specific songs, and I would learn them with the help of various Egyptian and Iraqi and Syrian musician friends. But here I am, this is like 30 years later now, and I'm actually traveling in Egypt with a dancer friend. And she has, as a belly dancer, led, at this point, 25 tours to Egypt. So she knows her way around the dance musician community in not only Cairo, but also up the Nile and some of the other smaller towns too. So here we are with her taxi driver friend on the west bank of the river, which is the poor side of the river. Baib is saying, "Hi, Eva, it's so nice to see you again. Let me tell everybody and we'll have a party tonight."
Yeah, nice.
So
That's great.
pretty soon we're setting up in somebody's adobe brick yard. They bring in some tables and wire them together. 3 guys that play mizmars. These are these horrendously loud oboes that have been played for thousands of years. They sit cross-legged with a drummer, one guy with a big bass drum and a stick. They sit on top of those tables and they play non-stop for something like 9 hours.
Nice.
Except for the time when they made a little gap in the dancing and singing because they saw that this crazy American had an oud with him and they wanted to hear what that sounded like. So I took advantage of that gap in their music and dance, and I played one of the favorite Egyptian songs, which is about a guy that's lost spiritually at the moment, and he's wandering and wandering, feeling like a stranger. And the song is about his yearning, which so much beautiful music all over the world is about somebody's yearning.
Of course.
So I sang that, which is it's a long song. It takes 10, 15 minutes to sing that whole song. And I knew the whole thing perfectly, basically. Yeah. And after I sang that, I just felt the spiritual energy of the few hundred people that were gathered there that night just glom onto my soul. Like I was adopted then. I felt it. I was like merged psychically, telepathically with their energy, and they began getting me up to dance with them. They have this stick dance that they do called taktib, and you get on the other end of the stick and you do all these kind of centrifuge moves. It's very high energy, almost like martial arts level dancing. Anyway, after staying up all night till sunrise with this group, and my friend Eva, the dancer who brought us into that situation, was of course performing over and over again in that group that night. I thought about it, and I realized that what I had done as an American, showing up, knowing that song, and being willing to dance all night long with those people in Egypt, had opened a psychic aperture, a portal between America and Egypt that was so wide open that we should acknowledge it. We should just say, I'm aware that this portal is now open. Like I can go back to that village anytime I want to in the future, and people will see me and I'll see them, and we'll immediately know that we have this open portal. And then I thought about all of the usual government level work, which involves so many bureaucrats with so many papers and so much. Yes, they have money and aid at their disposal, which is not something that I had much of. But I thought, if we can work together, if people who have the money and the aid can join forces with musical ambassadors who can open the portals, we can really do something to unify love energies on planet Earth.
So that's really beautiful, and both of your stories touch into something I've experienced as well in my travels around the world, sharing music and culture. As you know, I've been to India and Cuba and Puerto Rico and Africa and India, just all kinds of different countries, bringing music and studying their music primarily. And what I find too is exactly what you're saying. Once you've experienced that and you've given them that opportunity to see that not all Americans are this certain political way or this certain way that Americans are often perceived in other countries, but that some of us, especially the musicians and the artists and the creatives amongst us, we have this different awareness of how to navigate in the world. And when we touch that in another culture and they get to experience that in us and we get to experience that in them, that is absolutely, you're right, a portal and a bridge to world peace. And it's one of the well-known, it's very well known that music is a bridge to peace around the world. So in your amazing experiences around the world, if you were to leave people today in this segment, we're going to do another couple segments with Cameron, so please stay tuned in. I'm going to do as many as I can with him while I've got him here today. What would that nugget be? If you wanted to share that with other musicians out there, other creatives, other artists, mine would be, of course, travel, see the world, go with an open, humble heart and experience these places and bring your joy and your gift to them. What would you like to say to the young people out there that might want to travel and see the world in this way, who maybe have fears because there's been a lot of propaganda around some cultures, or maybe they're not sure how to really, step into that? What would you share with them?
That there's a legacy that is thousands of years old that is best exemplified by the ancient camel caravan routes. And we think that all that's history, but if you actually travel the routes of ancient trade routes, whether they were carrying silks from China or salt through Australia, the people in the villages and cities along those ancient trade routes remember that thousands of years legacy. And whatever the modern political situation might be trying to impose in terms of fear-based wartime reality, they're not going to close their hearts to their ancient tradition of hospitality for a traveler, because they still remember the legacy of thousands of years of people coming and going, speaking umpteen different languages. And just do it.
Just do it.
Those
Yes.
routes are still there, you know.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, we're going to sign off for this segment, and again, tune in. There'll be a couple more. And Cameron, do you want to just share your website again and how people can contribute and support your work and the projects that you have going?
Well, the website is musicalambassadorsofpeace.org, and if you go there, you can find more stories about these portals that we open around planet Earth, and you can find a donate button and help contribute if you feel like it, so that it keeps our musical ambassadors busy and afloat.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a beautiful day. Fill it with passion, purpose, and possibility, because love wants to live in you.